All right, good afternoon. Thank you for joining this sessions of the USDA Fall 2023 Virtual Data User Meeting. This session that you're in is titled Understanding Publicly Available Data from USDA Risk Management Agency. I will be your moderator for this sessions. My name is Xuan Pham, and I am a senior actuary here at RMA. I'm joined this afternoon by three of my colleagues, Michael Hibbs, Ben Marcy, and Dr. Jim Hippo. The Risk Management Agency manages the Federal Crop Insurance Corporation. We serve American agricultural producers through effective market-based risk management tools to strengthen the economic stability of agricultural producers and rural communities. In 2023, the Federal Crop Insurance Program offered producers 36 different insurance plans that cover 134 different crops, spanning 604 varieties. The total insured value of the Federal Crop Insurance Program for the crop year 2023 is currently at $207 billion. To learn more about our work and the Federal Crop Insurance Program, please be sure to visit us on our website. It's rma.usda.gov. This session today will be composed of three 15-minute presentations. The first presentation will show you how you can access and use the Summary of Business pre-generated report, as well as an application that will allow you to create customizable report. The second presentation will show you how to access, download, and provide some use cases of our historical cost of loss data. And then our third presentation will show you how you can access weather and climate data from Oregon State University PRISM Climate Group, which is a long-standing partnership that we have here at RMA. Please keep your question to the end, where we will have a Q&A portion, and that will be scheduled for the last 10 minutes of today's sessions. Alternatively, please feel free to ask your questions in the chat feature, and we'll do our best to answer them. And with that, I will now turn it over to my colleagues, Michael Hibbs, who will show us how to access and use RMA's Summary of Business data. Michael?
All right, thanks, Xuan. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining this breakout session. We are happy to be invited to this event and look forward to sharing with you some things that hopefully you find interesting and useful. My name is Michael Hibbs. I am the Senior AIP Data Coordinator at RMA. So here you can see my agenda for the section of this presentation. My goal is to show users how to access the RMA public website. As Xuan already gave the address, I'll show it to you here in a minute. I will show you some example reports and data files, and also an application that's quite useful to allow you to customize crop insurance reports. So my section is more around where to find things. My primary role is the coordination of data requests, both internal to USDA and external. I have worked for RMA for about 8 years now. And then just a few things about myself outside of work. I do enjoy spending time with family, traveling, and I am a Chiefs fan. And even if you're not a professional football fan lately, it's kind of hard to not just see something about them in the news, at least one of their players. So, all right. So back on the topic at hand, before I begin with where to find Summary of Business related federal crop insurance data, it is important to know where the data comes from and what it contains. So the approved insurance providers, or as we call them, AIPs, are the companies that sell and service the crop insurance policies being insured. The AIPs collect the insurance data and report the data to RMA. The data found in the various reports and data files are at different aggregations of what some might consider pertinent reported data, and it is rolled up to a level that protects proprietary information. Some of the key data elements found in these will include liability amounts, total premium amounts, and indemnity amounts. So to begin, I just want to show you how to access the website, which on my slide, if you're seeing it, it has the link, www.rma.usda.gov. And this is going to take you to the landing page. From here, you can access all sorts of materials, but in this session, we're just going to focus on the RMA data sets that are commonly used the most when it comes to summary of business crop insurance data. So on the next slide, you'll see that I have an arrow pointing at the tools dropdown. It's in the middle of the header row with all the dropdowns. Once you select that, it will take you to several various tools and applications at your disposal. Do want to pause for a second before continuing, because there are other tools within this area that could be of interest. For example, actuarial information browser will show you prices and rates and things like that. So there is a lot of stuff here to look through, but it is worth checking out.
Michael,
yeah.
Before you go on to the next slide, the chat is saying that we are looking at the presenter view of your presentation, so the slide are a little bit small. Can you stop sharing and maybe reshare? Or at the top, there's a display setting button. I don't know if that will help.
Let's see here.
Settings button at the top.
Yeah. So at the top, there should be a display setting.
Let's see.
And then you can change that.
Is this?
Yes, that's much better.
Yeah, that's it.
Awesome.
Right on.
No, thank you.
Yep. No, thanks for stopping me. That's probably really hard to see. Does anybody need me to go back? If so, I can. This is kind of where it really gets going, so should be okay. So anyways, back to this. On this screen here, you would select summary of business reports. This is the landing page where you're going to find the summary of business related files and reports. The bottom right is where you're going to find the downloadable data files, which we will get into later. On the left-hand side, these are all pre-generated reports. It has the top section are just national, year-to-date summary of business reports, which I will show you an example of here on the next slide. And then on the left-hand side, you can see pre-generated summary of business reports at various levels: crop state, insurance plan, so on and so forth. These are just simple one-click report pops up, and you can save it, print it. But I'll show you an example here. So this is an example of a national, just year-to-date report. I will point out that these reports are refreshed each Monday throughout the year, as is the data found in the data files and any other reports online. This is just a snapshot of the business. It houses several years. It does not include state or county, but that's where you could use those other pre-generated reports to get to that level of data. The summary of business data files, back on that same landing page, I'm only going to focus on two of these because Mr. Ben Marcy is going to cover one of them. We're going to look at the state county crop summary of business and livestock and dairy participation, just to give you an example of what these look like when you visit these links. So this is going to be the state county crop summary of business section. We'll just point out, these data files are going to contain what we consider standard commodities, which is simply anything that's just not livestock. There are three levels here. The top one being just a very historical data set that you might find interesting. It's at the state county crop level. The middle section, which I have blown up to show a couple snapshots of what you might find, it's at the state county crop coverage level. And then the bottom, it also includes type, practice, and unit structure, so a little bit lower level data. Back to the middle section though, each of these data sets are going to have a record layout. And this is just simply going to tell you, here are the elements found in the data file. Think of it like a header row. It's going to have the format and then a simple definition to provide, what each of these elements stand for. And then the data files are pipe delimited text files that you can download. You could read them into a system, maybe like SQL. You can also just copy and paste them into an Excel file. The other one is the livestock and dairy. And again, this is all 3 livestock programs that RMA has currently. We've broken them out from the other standard commodities. And it's the same setup with the record layouts and the zip files that contain the pipe delimited text files for your ability to download those and do your analysis. So back to the same landing page where we found the pre-generated, just one-click reports and also the data files. I have circled summary of business, and this is a link that's going to take you to the actual summary of business application itself. So a little bit about the summary of business application. It does have 3 main parts to it. The report generator, which will allow a user to customize and create your own report that you're able to save and download. It has prepared reports, which are more similar to the one-click reports, no customization, and then historical reports, which, as I mentioned earlier, reports are regenerated each Monday of the week. These go back each Monday to 1999. So after you click that link to get to the summary of business application, it's going to take you to this page here. This is just a landing page where you have the ability to go into either report generator, prepared reports, or historical reports. There is a help section if you get stuck. It'll walk you through some steps for each. With the number 2 over here, it's just giving you a slight description of what each of these could be used for. And then again, circled, I have the as of date. This picture was taken the week of September 25th. So this week would be October 16th is what it would show if you visited this application. So we're going to look at the report generator. The report generator is the tool that you are able to build your own customized report. On the left, shown with number 1, this is where you're going to make your selections. In the middle, shown with number 2, after you make a selection in that section for number 1, it's going to show up in the middle here, and that's where you're going to actually identify what you're looking for. And then in number 3, it's just summarizing what you have selected. So let's see an example. So in number 1, you can see that we've selected standard commodities. Again, that's anything that's not livestock. You can select livestock. You can select both. Those are options. Number 2, we just went with the default commodity year. And number 3 and 4, you can see that we have picked commodity and state. In the middle section, you'll notice there are drop downs for everything we selected. So in commodity year, you could select 2023, which is what is default, but you could also select multiple years. In the next part, we had selected commodity. And I want to point out, there is a code next to each commodity that RMA uses to identify the commodity. You do not have to know the code. It does spell out the commodity name for you. And then the state, it'll be a drop down. And again, it will have a code, but all you need to know is the state abbreviation. On the right-hand side in the criteria summary, you can see that it shows that we have selected the years 2023. We have selected corn, which it does not say corn, but it will in that middle section again. And we have selected the state of Iowa. Number 5 down here is just pointing to get report. So that's what you will select. So this is the report after it's generated. In the main white section of the screen, this is the actual report. On the left-hand side, identified by number 1, within that bracket, section, you can deselect any of these, or you can leave them all. As you deselect them, it will remove those columns from the report itself. In number 2, you have choices to see abbreviations, names, codes, all 3 if you'd like. And then simply, you have the ability to export this to an Excel spreadsheet. You can print it to a PDF, or that third option is to create a link that you can share via Teams, Zoom, email, and then someone on the other side can click that link and it will take them to this report. So the next one is the prepared reports. You can simply, with number 1, select a national report, which is going to just be a range of years. Or with number 2, you can have each of these have a plus. You can click that as a drop down, and it's going to give you a little more detailed report. It will show up in this main section of the screen, and you have the ability to save or print these. These should be fairly identical to the ones found on the public website that I showed you earlier. The difference is there is a draw feature if you're good at that sort of thing, drawing with a mouse. The next section is the historical reports. These are the ones that go back to 1999, week over week over week. And you can see here, identified by number 1, that I have selected January 2nd, 2023. No reason to that, just to show you that you can go back in time. For number 2, you would just click refresh. You click refresh, and then the number 3 is just showing that date refreshed. This is just showing that I have dropped down at the commodity level. So let me go back. The plus next to the commodity level, if you select that, it'll drop down all these different years. And I'm just showing that I clicked 2023, and the report on the right-hand side is what appears. And again, you have the ability to print or save. You can draw on these if needed. Lastly, there is a help section. And again, it will just pop up little displays to help a user along the way. We always do say, though, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out because you're definitely not the first that might run into some issues. And I just want to thank you for your time. And again, if you have any questions along the way, post them in the chat. We will have a Q&A session, as Swan mentioned earlier. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ben Marcy.
Hey, thank you, Michael. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Okay. Hopefully all can see that okay. Today we're going to cover the RMA cause of loss data. And so some of the things that we're going to take a look at in particular here is first, how do I find the cause of loss data? What kind of information is actually available in the data set? And it kind of builds on some of what Michael mentioned earlier here. Also, some of the kind of key references and layout information that you might need. And then really how to load this data into, say, something as simple as Excel, kind of prepare it for analysis. And then we're going to do a few quick examples. We're going to cover preventive planting claims in Alabama, as well as cause of loss for Texas cotton, and that'll show those losses by month. So my name is Ben Marcy. I'm the Special Assistant to the Deputy Administrator for Insurance Services. I've been with RMA about 15 years here now and grew up on a farm in the Panhandle of Northwest Nebraska. If I do have some free time, do enjoy working on the farm as well as hunting and fishing and spending time with family. But kind of similar to where the summary of business information is, if you go out to the RMA website here, a lot of good information here under tools. And we're going to focus primarily on this one under the cause of loss data here in this lower left-hand corner of that menu item. And so what kind of data can we find in here? This gives a lot of, kind of that critical information on losses. So it digs a little bit deeper than some of the summary of business and gets into specifically the claims and indemnity sides of things. So it looks at the time frame of the loss with the month and the year that it occurred. It shows the state and county level. And then what was that cause of loss? Was it drought? Was it freeze, excess moisture, hail, etc.? And it shows this by crop and commodity as well as insurance plan. And then it even shows some of the key stages of growing that crop, such whether this was a replant payment, prevent plants, or a harvested or unharvested loss. And kind of with that, it'll show the key stats similar to summary business, like policies, acres, liability, premium, indemnity, and that sort of thing. And similar to that information, it's updated weekly. So once you select that on the menu item here, it's going to take you to this list of files here. And so you'll see these are all kind of zipped files by year. And you have some information here that I kind of highlighted as well that show the record layouts. And then even down here below, you have some stage code information, which we'll use a little bit later on. But these two items here are kind of some reference material to help you kind of interpret some of the information that you'll download from the zip files here. And so once you go ahead and click on that information, it's going to ask you to download the file. So in this, we selected that 2022 year, and you can go ahead and extract that, and it's going to create a text file for you that will be, available here for you to start to work with. And to upload this into Excel, you can go up to your data tab and text from the data from the text or the CSV file. And then go ahead and select your file and load the data. And this will begin to load that information into your spreadsheet. And, the cause of loss data, especially as you look at things nationwide, it is on a year-by-year basis, but it can be, pretty large data set to go through. So this is, our data and what it looks like as it's loaded. A lot of this information may look somewhat familiar that you can kind of interpret it, where we may have the year, state, code, state, as well as crop in there. But we do have a lot of columns across. I believe there's close to 30 that are available here for you. And so there's actually kind of an easy little trick here to reference that and fix those column headers. So if you go back to our historical cause of loss data file, as I mentioned, that record layout, I like to use the Word version in particular. I think it copies pretty easily. But you can actually go through and highlight all of those columns in that are the column name, and you can copy and paste that into your Excel file, and that will put all your headers in so you can begin to review and kind of manipulate some of the data here. And so wanted to spend some time going through a few quick examples here. We're going to take first a look at some prevented planting claims in Alabama. And then we'll go to some of the causes of loss for cotton. And so if you're familiar with pivot tables, this will be pretty easy, but begin by highlighting up here in the upper left-hand corner your data set, your table. And then you're going to go ahead and click Insert, and you're going to insert a pivot table from the table and range. And we'll go ahead and add that to a new worksheet. And so once you get here, you'll be able to go through and organize those columns that we put together. So for this case, we wanted to look at these 2022 prevent plant claims in Alabama. And we will add in our filters. So we're looking at the state as well as the stage of when this loss occurred, trying to isolate those just to prevent plant, as well as the county name. And then we're specifically looking at indemnity payments as part of that. But you could add in liability or acres or things of that nature as well. And so once you go through here to isolate those prevent plant claims, you'll need to know the appropriate stage codes that were available as part of it. A lot of them are, a single digit or, a double character code. And in that reference material that we looked at here earlier, it had the stage code listing. It shows them as they go back in history from 1989 going forward. And for this, we can see that these two would apply. So this P2 and PF, which shows the 5% buy-up of prevent plant, as well as the prevented planting option, is what we're going to go ahead and filter down to in our stage code. And so now, once we have that, we've got a listing of our counties here in Alabama, and we've got the some of the indemnities paid in 2022 as part of that. You could add in the different causes of loss if you wanted. You could, look at some other information, but this gives us at least a indemnity amount by county. And because we do know the state and county, there's actually some nice tools just readily available in Excel where you can go ahead and create a quick map of this. And so if you have the state, county, and indemnity all copied together here, you can actually go up and use this function in Excel to create a map and just do a filled map, and it will populate kind of across the country or across the state here, a bit of a heat map of where indemnity payments have been made for prevent plants in Alabama. So that is the first example. The second one we're going to take a look and spend a little bit more time on here, but this is cotton in Texas, and we're looking at the cause of loss by month. And so we're going to try to recreate this chart here based on that information that we just recently loaded in. So for this one, we're going to go ahead and insert, and we're going to do a pivot chart and pivot table, but highlighting that same table area that we did here previously. As we did before, we're going to go ahead and add it into a new worksheet and go ahead and arrange our fields. So for the state, we're going to go ahead and filter down to Texas. We're specifically looking at cotton, and we want to know kind of the cause of loss by the month that the loss occurred, and also sum this by the indemnity amounts that are up there. So we'll just go ahead and set those filters as we had kind of laid out. And this will go ahead and kind of create your Excel chart as part of that. So you can kind of see the bar chart by month. You can go up and change this chart type into a line chart to maybe view this a little bit easier. And so that's something that we've done here to kind of make this a little bit easier to review. But one of the things that you can see here with this is just the causes of loss for that 2022 crop year by the different causes of loss. So drought is the primary cause of loss that occurred over that time, and most of it occurred in June. We also had some other causes that came in here. We've got some cold, wet weather. I think that might be that. It might be, oh, it's hot wind, excuse me. Couple others that have come in as part of it. But one of the things that I really wanted to kind of mention is just the level of detail that we have on the causes of loss. In particular here, we have drought, failure of irrigation supply, heat, and hot wind. And all of these show up as being fairly high here on the list of indemnities. They are separate, but they may be related. So you do want to take a close look at these causes of loss, as some of them may be related. And then you can go ahead and actually filter in by the different causes of loss. And so this is really looking at, some of those drought or heat related losses that are out there. So it shows the drought, hot wind, heat, and then failure of irrigation supply. So this allows you to kind of customize and fit to what situations make the most sense. Another common thing, I'll take a quick step back here, that we see is excess moisture, precipitation, and rain, along with flood. So these may be related, but different in how they occur. And this allows us to kind of compare that and go and look at some of our other data, and when that actually occurred. So it gives you a good, month by month, state and county level, as well as insurance plan of what the cause of loss is, what was driving it, and what that peril was that was out there. And so this will actually pair in nicely with Dr. Hippel's presentation covering some of our climate data, and then how we can use that and look at this on some of a month by month basis based on what we're seeing here. And so hopefully that gives you a little bit of background on our cause of loss information. A lot of good granular detail there, but I'll go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Hippel. So thank you, everyone.
Hey, thanks, Ben. Share my screen real quick. There we go. Hopefully everybody can see my screen and hear me.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Hey, thank you. Today I'm going to talk about the RMA and the PRISM weather and climate system and the data associated with PRISM. We're going to talk a little bit about what PRISM is, PRISM Data Explorer, a little bit about downloading data from PRISM, and some of the update nature, or the kind of the temporality associated with PRISM data for both daily data updates and monthly data updates. A little bit about me, I'm Jim Hippo. I'm a physical scientist with the Office of the Deputy Administrator for Compliance, Business Analytics Division. I've been with RMA for 19 years, a little bit more than 19 years. I'm an avid traveler and roller coaster aficionado, and my favorite season is anything but winter. Going a little bit about what PRISM is. PRISM is a gridded data set of both weather and climate variables produced by Oregon State University. PRISM is the parameter elevation regression on independent slopes model. It estimates weather and climate variables such as temperature and precipitation for a grid of millions of pixels. And its resolution is about a quarter mile across entire continental US for every day. RMA and PRISM have had a cooperative support agreement supporting the development of this PRISM data set since approximately 2012. Prior to that, it was work that was done with Natural Resource Conservation Service, and in 2012, RMA took over that agreement in terms of supporting the core data sets, which are the production of daily weather and climate data sets, and worked on some development of tools to support the adjustment of weather-related causes of loss. And we do this and provide information and tools to both RMA and the approved insurance providers and their adjusters through something called the PRISM RMA Weather and Climate Portal. As part of that agreement, we required PRISM to actually continue to make the PRISM data sets available to the public. And we'll talk a little bit about the access of PRISM data through the public portal. And the URL is on the screen. It's prism.oregonstate.edu. And like I said, part of that cooperative support agreement makes this data available to the general public, but also tools that individual producers or researchers or others can come in and look at it and examine the data. And this is just a view of this website, which we'll show live in just a short few minutes. PRISM work on a set of primary data, precipitation, Tmin, Tmax, Tmean, which is a derived data set, daily mean dew point temperature, vapor pressure, and have started doing solar radiation. We're looking at kind of building out kind of the agronomically important weather and climate variables within this data set. And you could look at the link here that kind of gives details about each of the PRISM data sets, which are also linked within that PRISM portal webpage. So PRISM, it gathers climate observations from a wide variety of monitoring networks, applies very sophisticated quality control to that data, and develops the spatial climate data sets for short-term and long-term weather and climate patterns. So the resulting data sets incorporate a variety of modeling techniques and are available at multiple spatial and temporal resolutions. We're going to look at the PRISM Data Explorer, which is one of the tools that was developed to aid, the public to get into the PRISM data sets and examine specific use cases. And I will go to that in just a moment. And in that, you're able to go in, look at the key weather and climate variables, select a particular location, look at the normals, annual values, single month values, monthly values, or even daily values. Some of the data sets are available at the kind of the PRISM 4-kilometer public resolution. The 30-year normals are available at a finer resolution, which is a 800-meter pixel. We're gonna get out of that and go over to the PRISM public website here, prism.oregonstateuniversity.edu, and we're going to scroll down and look at the Data Explorer. The Data Explorer, again, that same page comes up, allows me to go in, and in this case right here, an interactive map where I can choose my location. I will choose my home, and I'm going to look at precipitation, minimum temperature, maximum temperature, and I'll turn off the mean viewpoint temperature. And I can go in, I could look at monthly, I could look at single month values selectable from 1895 to the present, or I could go in and look at monthly periods or even daily periods. So I'm going to look at April 1st, 2023 to October 17th, which is basically yesterday's data is the most recent data in there. And it's going to give you a little bit here that's going to say data stability, and it says certain to change. And we're going to hit on next what data stability means in terms of the PRISM update schedule. But then I'm going to go here, and for my zoom in, I'll select where I live here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and it's going to give me the 4-kilometer grid, and I'm going to hit retrieve time series. And that's going to give me a time series of precipitation, temperature mean, or a temperature max and temperature min for that period, and allow you to go through here and interact with that data and give you for individual dates what the precipitation, Tmax and Tmin were. We had a number of very hot days in the beginning of October here, which were unwanted with that high a temperature. And then you could go and download this particular time series to your device, web browser, whatever works there. So it's a fairly simple interaction there. You could actually have, there's options for developing data from multiple locations as well. But we're going to go back to the presentation here. Beyond just the interaction on individual to get these important weather and climate variables, and the interactive nature of the charts and graphs in there, you can actually go in and download within this environment kind of the full sets of daily and monthly data available. There's documentation here on the methods of downloading PRISM data. It gets you the national level data sets for the daily and monthly within the PRISM environment. It's FTP provides documentation on doing it, as well as documentation on web service access if you want to set up a web service to be able to pull that data. The data sets, as noted earlier, are not static entities, but they're in a constant state of change. And that's due primarily to the kind of extensive QA/QC process associated with PRISM and the way that they do quality control on their work. The PRISM daily data and the PRISM monthly data have a series of model runs. And those model runs go from, on the daily data, the first model run, which is kind of the first blush. It's the day ending at 12 GMT. That model run is run 24 hours later. 5 days later, there's a second model run, and then 3 through 7 are come at 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 months out. And then the 8th model run is basically 6 months out, and that becomes ultimately that stable PRISM data set. You may ask why. Why so many different iterations? Because a lot of it's driven by the availability and quality control associated with the variety of weather monitoring stations out there. So if you just did a model run and did a daily data set the day after there are some station data sets out there, some weather monitoring networks that are available on the first day, but they've not gone through quality control, or the, 5 days out or 30 days out. And if you're just doing having a gridded data set that's run on that first day, then you're often missing out on as new weather data sets become available. And in this case, we go through and PRISM goes through and has a process for re-ingesting these. So these are basically the day one processing. So it's pull the data, pull the radar data, generate the core analytics, goes through posting it to the RMA portal, and then posting it to the public portal. And then this repeats again on day 5, and they repeat that step. They can continue to repeat that step based upon that previous calendar. All you could determine for any given day on the PRISM daily use or daily availability calendar for that day, the timeliness of when that data was run, and you could go through and download that data that way as well. And the same thing happens for the PRISM monthly data sets, where it's multiple times to accommodate that data reporting and quality control from the various station networks. So first model run is made the first day of the following month. 2 through 7 are completed about the 15th of each month out to 6 months. And that final model run 6 months out is considered the stable. These aren't rerun until either large station networks come in or the model gets reevaluated, and then they do a kind of a wholesale change across all the network, all the grid cells and run. So very similar process, although this is occurring on a monthly basis. PRISM data is, again, another view. PRISM data is available. If you look at for the monthly data, you could look at it as a tabular view or a list format and access the information that way. And one of the things, if you're looking at PRISM data that's availability outside of the PRISM download, we see it on Google Earth Engine. There's PRISM data in various either user pays or publicly available as 3 buckets on Amazon. It is available within Esri toolsets. There's been some development of models out there. I think the UC Davis, some folks there put together some PRISM R tools to pull PRISM data. If you're using any of the publicly available data that is not coming directly from PRISM and that PRISM download, make sure whatever source you're using is addressing that particular PRISM release cycle, because some of them we see pull data and then they don't go either on a weekly or a monthly basis and look for changes until it gets, they'll pull the first day that it's released, and then that's pretty static until, often for the life of it as it sits in these particular environments. So those are the types of things we wanted to cover. I'll turn it back over to Swan in case there's any chats or comments out there.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Hippo. We do have some questions in a Q&A, and we only have a few minutes left. I'll try my best to have them all addressed, but if not, please know that we will get your questions answered. NASS will put out a file that will have the question that were asked during any of these sessions and the answer. So you can check for that as well. So let's start with Ben. Ben, maybe perhaps you can address this first question. This is a question from Benjamin Diamonds. What is the difference between a reinsurance year and a crop year or commodity year?
That's a good question, and it's actually one. It depends a little bit by crop, because sometimes they can be the same, and sometimes they can be actually different. And so, an example of that might be, a crop that is planted in the fall and is planted in a different calendar year than, say, the next year with when it would be harvested. So I'm thinking of wheat being planted in the fall. That is going to be harvested in that crop year. So next year would be 2024. And that is also the same reinsurance year for that. We have other crops, though, that have when it gets harvested versus when it's the reinsurance period lasts. And it just depends on a crop by crop basis as to what those are. I'm trying to think of an example here off the top of my head, but I can't think of one here in particular. So
Florida citrus would be an example. Florida
Okay.
citrus is one where we get a lot of questions about reinsurance year not matching up with crop year. If you ever have questions like that and you're looking at a particular crop, please just feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to look at the data and help you with that. And then there is also some link on our website that explain what an insurance cycle is and when something would start. I'll add it into the chat so that you can have a link to those as well. All right, next up, more questions. These are about the summary of business report generator. So Michael, first questions from Benjamin Diamond. Would it be possible to add customization to the historical report like the report generator for summary of business?
It's a good question, Benjamin. I'm not entirely sure if it's possible or not. These are just the simple one-click reports. And to be honest, this would be the first time that anyone's ever shown that sort of interest. So might be something I just have to take and get back on.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you, Michael. Next questions is from Cole. Is there any way to get historical RMA report in Excel or other format that is not a PDF?
Yeah, so currently it's the only ability you have is to print these to a PDF. And I'm assuming that was just set up that way since these are non-customizable reports rather than just one-click reports. It's not saying that if there isn't some sort of interest, we would definitely want you to reach out to us and let us know that something we could look into, I'm sure.
Sounds good. All right, next question is also from Benjamin. I get this message with the generated SOB weekly report. Aggregated policy and unit counts may be overstated due to the possibility that multiple coverage level can exist on an individual underlying policy. For an accurate policy count and unit count, please refer to the prepared report. Why are the units count handled differently between these two types of report?
I can try to handle this one, and I would ask if any of my colleagues want to step in as well, just in case I jumble this up, because it is a little confusing. The policy and unit counts at the coverage level percent view. So if you're generating a report, because a policy could have more than one, as it says, it can then overstate those counts. Whereas the SOB prepared reports, not at the coverage level, which if it makes sense to call it a lower level, more detailed level, they do not count at that same level. Therefore, their counts are more accurate with what we consider a policy when we are counting policies. I'm not sure if anybody else has anything a little less confusing, but that's what that message is intended to try to explain.
All right, thank you, Michael. Next questions. It looked like this one will be for Dr. Hippo. This is from Roberto Sanchez. Do we have data in the PRISM database for Hawaii and US territory, or do you have it in a different database?
Well, it's an interesting and timely question because right now we do not have Hawaii in there, but we just signed an agreement for the development of similar data set with Oregon State University to develop data for Hawaii, Puerto Rico, and the kind of the agricultural areas in Alaska. So areas where crop insurance is going. And that's we expect it's probably going to be a year and a half or so before those data are completed in a similar fashion to PRISM, the current PRISM data set, but those are under development.
Thank you. Next question. This is for Ben. This is from Fort Ramsey. Are there more detailed definitions of cost of loss provided anywhere on the website? And have there been changes in cost of loss allowed, and thus changes in cost of loss that could be found in data in different years? So I think this question, go ahead.
Yeah, anybody else to also step in on this, but we do have some listings and some definitions on causes of loss on the website. We also have a listing on what companies can actually submit in for causes of loss. So different policies cover different things. And so I think those are some things that can change over time. You can kind of see that it's kind of buried in the website as a full listing of the ICE tables that have that. But that's something that we could share for this year, at least where to find it and kind of where to go back and see those. My guess is that they probably changed, but probably not a lot, just depending on what we're covering out there.
Yeah, so to follow up on that, yes, they do change. For example, this year there is a new cost of loss for tropical storm option as something that I have found when I was looking at the data. You know, if you ever have questions about cost of loss code, just feel free to reach out to us and we're more than happy to get someone who knows the answer and address them. All right, let's see. This is from Marvin Miller. Can you please provide one or two quick examples of how you might use the PRISM data?
So a quick example for the way that compliance uses it is that we actually have tool sets that are available to the AIPs, compliance investigators, and loss adjusters for aiding them in documenting the weather-related causes of loss tied to a loss claim. So it provides documentation to aid that loss adjuster in ensuring that loss is appropriately adjusted. A second example might be for if we're looking at impacts of, say, widespread drought or excess precipitation, we can use the PRISM data set along with other policy information and look at effects within a given year on the program from that data.
All right, thank you. We are almost out of time, and there are 3 questions left. So I would like to answer these 3 and then these 3 questions, and then we'll be done for the session today. This next one is from Benjamin Diamond. I don't remember if I have answered this one yet, but this one is about adding customization to historical report, like the report generator for summary of business.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we answered that, just that
okay.
We weren't entirely sure if that would be possible or not. But
okay, thank you. All right, this one is from Mark Rosenbaum. Mark wants to know, I've been looking for 2 Pacific data series. One is the A&O cost for every year, and 2, the underwriting gain loss total for every year. So I can take these questions. I know that we do publish some A&O cost data, but I don't know exactly on where on our website that is. So Mark, I will put my email address into the chat, and please reach out, and then we'll see if we can get information for you if it's something that we can share. All right, and then last questions. Is the sole data for the PRISM product satellite radar?
Actually, PRISM doesn't use satellite radar at all. The weather data sources, the observation, are the ground networks across the US for things like weather stations like the various mesonets and ASOS and every other ground station out there network. The radar data used in it is from the NOAA NEXRAD stations and are used predominantly in the eastern portion of the US for generating the PRISM grids.
All right, thank you. With that, we have answered 12 questions in less than 10 minutes. So I think that is great. All right, well, we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon to talk about RMA data and what is publicly available. I have put my email address in the chat. Please feel free to reach out if you have follow-up questions. If there are things that we can help you with. And with that, we will close out this session now. Thank you so much for your participation this afternoon. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.